took off.
Facing a time-consuming and expensive run. A record amount of money has been spent on these races.
It could still work. Break down every moment.
So Bill O'Reilly, I think it was on Friday, bet me that if I came out on stage this weekend at a tour thing that we did, if I came out dressed as Joy Behar, he would pay me $5,000. I believe Bill O'Reilly owes me $5,000, but I'm going to let you decide. I'll show you what my costume was on stage on Saturday, and you can decide if he owes me the cash later on in the program. But tonight, it is Election Eve 2010, and the outcome depends on you. By the time we meet again tomorrow, you will have... No, you know what? Make a promise to yourself right now that you will have exercised your right to vote by the time that we meet tomorrow. If that means you're late for tomorrow's show, well, don't be aware of your priorities, man. Don't be late. I mean, we have DVRs for a reason. It's not 2008 anymore. This time, Washington, America is awake and ready for real change. It's up to you, America, to chart the course for the future of the Republic. It is time for your voice to be heard. It is time for you to cast your vote. Hello, America. It's Election Eve. Democrats are all curled up in the fetal position, binky in hand, just bracing for the bad news. According to the polls, it's almost certain to be bad news. The only question left is, how bad will it be? Gallup just released these poll numbers. Among likely voters, Republicans have a 15-point lead over the Democrats. Gallup said this gap is unprecedented in their polling history. But may I be the little black rain cloud? Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Most people haven't voted yet. That 15-point gap is great, but depending on one thing, you, and whether the voters turn out. If voter turnout is low, the Republican lead shrinks to 4-point advantage. You've got to make sure you go out and vote. Bring somebody along with you, because the opposition is working overtime to make sure the damage is minimalized. Now, you have George Soros. I mean, George Soros he's opening up his wallet like never before, paying things like blogs, think tanks, NPR reporters, even making sure the right Secretary of States are elected. You know, for the close recounts, George just wants to make sure it's all fair. Really? Every shady voting trick is being pulled out. In Pennsylvania, voters in the 8th District got this in the mail. This is amazing. They warned that, hey, you should have received a notice from our office. Our records indicate that you have not responded. Yeah. It's warning them, the voters, that their ability to vote will be in jeopardy unless they return the enclosed absentee ballot. This is from the Pennsylvania Voter Assistance Office. It's fictitious. Prepaid envelope. Actually, when you put your ballot in, it sends it back to a P.O. box belonging to Tim Persico, campaign manager for a Democrat, Patrick Murphy. Patrick, you should be ashamed of yourself. Quite honestly, doing stuff like this should put you guys in jail. We're going to find out tomorrow if America has, in the last 2 years, learned enough. And you want real change. And by change, I don't mean putting the Republicans back in power. I mean, although, did you see the crowd cheer for George W. Bush? Wasn't he like one of the most unpopular men? I mean, he was like Jack the Ripper when he left. Now everybody's like, oh, good. Oh, George. Oh. I mean, it was wild last night. Putting Republicans back in power is not the change America is looking for. Change is rooting out the cancer that is big government progressivism. And that's not going to happen overnight. It is structure and framework that has been put in place for over 100 years, designed to make us more dependent on government. Tomorrow is just a first step to reversing that trend. It's not, well, let's try the R's again. I think this is the last chance for the R's. America wasn't awake in 2008. We got on the hoppity change bandwagon, but that change was never really clearly defined. So, may I? Let's clearly define change this time around. Change. Reduce the size of government. Prosecute lawbreakers on Wall Street, Main Street, Pennsylvania Avenue, and the border. And let the people create jobs. Get out of our face so small businesses can create jobs. Now, Republicans, you are up 15 points. But quite honestly, that isn't because of you. In many ways, in some cases, it's in spite of you. You have been part of the problem. A smaller part of the problem, but still part of the problem. The debt increased $3 trillion in the last 4 years of Bush. Now, like I said, smaller part of the problem. In the past 2 years, Democrats have added $3 trillion. So we're just going at twice the speed. Do the Republicans support or oppose the principles you stand for? One way to check is if your candidate supports or opposes ballot initiatives like some of these. In Florida, there is a ballot question that asks whether Congress should add an amendment to the U.S. Constitution requiring a balanced federal budget. Yes. In Nevada, they are voting on judicial reform to have the judges appointed by governors. No. How do I know no? Well, if you're in Nevada, did you know that the initiative is being funded by George Soros? Yes. Through groups like Justice at Stake. Soros's Open Society Institute has spent some $45 million on this cause nationwide. Why? Why would he want this? Well, because he already controls many of the Secretary of States. How do you think Al Franken got in Minnesota? If there's a discrepancy, like there is in Nevada right now with the voting machines, don't worry. He's got the right Secretary of State in power, and SEIU can fix those machines like that. Now, if it's kicked to a judge, well, wouldn't it be nice if we just knew we had the judges? In Oklahoma, they're voting on term limits. I mean, who is against term limits at this point? We're not for opening up terms for the president. Why would we not want term limits for everybody else? Not everybody really likes the idea. In fact, the Attorney General added one sentence to the question that some say is an attempt to get the initiative defeated at the polls. Here it is. Limits the ability of voters to re-elect statewide elected officers. Damn right. It's confusing. Term limits means, limit the terms, not just one term. This is meant to scare you. I don't think there's anything more scary than politicians who have been in. What was the seat, Joe, the guy who's been in, he and his dad have been in the same seat since 1933? Is it Dingell? You got to be kidding me. Also in Nevada, they are voting to ban eminent domain. It would prohibit the taking of private property if it's being transferred to a private party. Duh. Legalization of marijuana is on the ballot in 4 states, Arizona, California, Oregon, and South Dakota. Although California's version, backed by George Soros, George, is that you again, is the most pro-pot. It's not just medical marijuana, it's all marijuana. Marijuana cigarettes for everybody. In Colorado, Amendment 61 would prohibit state debt by loan in any form. In Massachusetts, let me ask you, Barney Frank, how are you guys going to pay for the big health care package in Massachusetts when you're rolling the state tax back, the sales tax, from 6.25% to 3%? Maybe you should also cut the size of government in Massachusetts. I'm just a suggestion. Republicans have an historic opportunity here to end business as usual. It's time for the Trent Lotts and the Lindsey Grahams of the world to go bye-bye. Shh. You be quiet now. Tuck yourself in. Go away. Bye-bye. Remember, Trent Lott said the Tea Party was no big deal, and the GOP, well, we're just going to have to co-opt them when they get here. Are you now? You know, Lindsey, John McCain, Trent, maybe you should just sit down. Hey, maybe you guys can get into the back seat and Barack Obama can join you in there because both of you clowns put the damn car into the ditch. Now, let's look at the candidates like Tom Tancredo. He's running for governor in Colorado. Polls have him running within 5 points, as close to 3 points to the Democratic frontrunner. I want to show you his momentum. Look at this. He enters the race here. Everybody else, here's Hickenlooper. Everybody else has been in the race. Here's the Republican. This is where he enters the race. Look at this. Never been done. Never been done. Then there's also Ruth McClung. We had her on, I think it was on Friday's show. She's the 28-year-old scientist who decided she wasn't going to sit on the sidelines anymore. She wanted to run for Congress. Her mom is her campaign manager. She was basically laughed at by the establishment GOP for taking on a longtime progressive incumbent. Everybody said, unbeatable. They even called it political suicide mission. But now that she's pulled into, by two recent polls, a dead heat with that powerful progressive, the GOP has come running, offering her money. God bless you, Ruth. This woman in Arizona. She turned the money down, saying, I'm sorry, GOP, but I think your money comes with strings attached. Ruth, you are exactly the kind of person we need. These are two examples, and there are countless more popping up all around the country. So while it looks like good news, I want you to know, little black rain cloud Glenn is here. There's still a danger. And here's the biggest danger. Heading into the 1946 election, the Republicans hadn't seen majority in years, since 1928. They had gained 55 seats in the House and 13 in the Senate. 2 years later, they lost 75 seats to the Democrats. They were labeled a do-nothing Congress, and after that election, Republicans would suffer a 42-year drought for control of Congress. Obama, I believe, and George Soros, spooky dude, is planning on doing exactly the same thing. How do I know? Well, before they could obstruct anything, he was already calling the Republicans obstructionists. Combine that with Trent Lott type saying that they're just going to co-opt the Tea Party members. Then there's a story in Politico today. This story bothers me on so many levels. Let's start with the obvious one. Politico is saying now that after the election, the GOP elites, their next target is stopping Sarah Palin. All right, should this story be true? Memo to the establishment Republicans. If you don't take the advice of the Tea Party and instead try to eat them up, in 2 years, you will be able to spell GOP, and America will do it. They'll spell it like this: W-H-I-G. Whig. Where's the Whig Party today? Well, that's right. They don't exist. Yeah. That's you guys. What establishment Republican and Democrats are doing right now is ridiculous. Didn't they say it was bad for the system to have a third party power around? Don't create a third party. So what did the Tea Partiers do? They did it the right way. See, Americans play by the rules. They did it the right way. They went in and they went into the caucuses and the primaries, and they got Tea Party candidates elected as the GOP candidates. Well, the establishment on both the right and the left don't like it. The establishment candidate in Alaska is now running as an independent. The establishment candidate in Florida is running as a Democrat. The parties who didn't want a third party, each of them have created a third party. Now, the second thing you need to know on this particular story out of the Politico is the Politico is a left-leaning hack site. I mean, really, it's the Politico. Here's what they're trying to do. The day before the election, they're trying to discourage Tea Party members from voting, saying it really doesn't matter if your guy gets in because Trent Lott's going to be there. He's going to shut him down anyway. I think, personally, that story should be written the opposite way. Establishment candidates like Trent Lott and Lindsey Graham, if you don't embrace the common sense values and principles, if you don't hear what America is saying this time around, you are the ones who are going to get the boot. And you're going to get it a place, the boot generally in a place right about here, in this general area.